Take me to a deserted island. Okay, I think most of us can agree that the holiday side dishes really are the best part about the entire meal. I could honestly skip the protein and just go straight for the carbs and the rolls and the gravy, and I am set. Today I'm sharing holiday side dishes. I've got some classics for you, and I also have some new ones on the menu that I think you're really gonna love. And I also feel like these would be great side dishes to kind of divvy out to family members or friends, you know, when you have somebody call and they're like, hey, what can I bring for Thanksgiving, or what can I bring for Christmas? These side dishes are so easy. I would feel totally confident saying, can you make this recipe? I'm so glad you're here today. If we haven't met before, my name is Ange, and this is the Menu Made Kitchen. So we're gonna start with homemade stovetop stuffing. So this is basically like the boxed stovetop stuffing on crack. This is such a delicious recipe. I don't think I'll ever go back to the box. So I start by toasting up my bread cubes first. You can actually set these out on the counter a couple of days in advance as well, but I just feel like this is faster to throw them in the oven. I have a combination of sourdough, about 7 cups of cubed sourdough, and then I have 4 or 5 slices of thick wheat bread. I really like the texture and combination of both of these, and the sourdough in this is so delicious. So I'll throw this in the oven at 375 and we'll bake this about 15 to 17 minutes until the bread cubes are nice and toasted. And while that happens, I'll get my veggies ready. I have a whole onion here I'm gonna chop up along with some celery, some carrots, and fresh parsley. You definitely wanna use the freshest ingredients that you have for this recipe. So we'll start by chopping up our onion. I like to make sure all of the veggies are roughly the same size. I know I've said this in the past, but that way each bite is the perfect bite. So I have about a cup or so of yellow onion, and then I'm gonna chop up some celery. We're gonna probably end up with about 1.5 cups. I ended up having to grab a couple more stalks. And then I have 2 to 3 large carrots. I'm gonna chop this up as well. And then we'll end up using about a 1/4 cup of fresh chopped parsley. I like to add a little bit to the top also just before I serve it because I think it makes it look really pretty. So now that our veggies are prepped, I have a large nonstick skillet here. I'm gonna add 1 stick of cubed butter, and I just cube it so that it melts a little bit faster. And then I'll throw in all of the veggies except for the parsley. We'll saute the veggies until basically the carrots are tender. Next we have our seasonings, and you guys, this is what makes the stuffing so delicious. So we've got a teaspoon of dried sage, a 1/2 teaspoon of poultry seasoning, a 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme, a 1/2 teaspoon of dried rosemary, a 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. And then I also added 1 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And I just stir that just until you can kind of smell the fragrant spices and seasonings. And then we'll add in our dried bread cubes. Give this a toss just to coat the bread cubes a little bit in that butter before we add in our chicken stock. So this is where you want to use really good quality chicken stock. I use Better Than Bouillon, or you can use homemade. And I'll go ahead and link the Better Than Bouillon base in the descriptions because I love it so much. It's just so flavorful. So once you've added all of your stock, you just want to fold it gently. You don't want to mash the bread. And then we're going to pop the lid on, remove it from the heat, and just let it set for 15 minutes, and then it's ready to serve. You know, this is my favorite part. I got to taste this. Okay, here we go. Look at that. Isn't that so beautiful? Okay. Oh, wow. It's like the boxed, hold on, let me finish chewing. It's like the boxed mix on crack. This was so easy to make, and the flavor is like insane. I love the sourdough and the wheat mixed together. It just gives it a really good texture, and the seasonings in here are perfect. I cannot wait to make this for my mom. She is gonna die. Oh man. Okay, next we have Confetti wild rice pilaf. This is such a beautiful and colorful dish to make for the holidays. So I'm gonna start by cooking my wild rice. I have about a tablespoon of butter in a small pot here, and then I'm gonna add my wild rice blend. I've rinsed it with cold water for a few minutes just to remove some of the starch, and then I'll add in some chicken stock here. I have about 2 cups of chicken stock per 1 cup of rice. And I forgot to mention you can also use vegetable stock. So at this point, we'll give it a stir, and then we'll just place the lid on. We'll bring it to a boil. Once it's boiling, we'll give it another good stir, put the lid back on, and we'll turn it down to low and cook it for 45 minutes. You'll know the rice is done because some of the grains will have burst open and it'll have kind of a chewy, tender texture. You want to make sure to drain off any extra liquid before we add it to the rest of this recipe. But for now, we're going to get some of our ingredients going. I've got some onion here, dried cranberries, we've got some apricots and apples. I'm going to give the apricots a good chop. I like to make sure that all of the ingredients for this recipe is little tiny bite-sized pieces so that you'll have like little studded flecks of color in the rice when it's all done. So next we're going to get our apples ready. I like to use Granny Smith apples for this recipe. I just think the green looks really pretty and the tart flavor is perfect. So you can see I kind of cut around the core this way. This is so much easier than trying to cut it in half and remove the core. And then again, we're just going to chop up the apple in little tiny bite-sized pieces. And this is totally optional, but if you're not going to be using your apples for a bit, I put them in a bowl full of cold water, and then I'm just going to squeeze some lemon juice over the top. I'll kind of give it a stir with my clean hands, and then we'll let this sit, and that way your apples won't turn brown before you add them to the skillet. So we've got our large nonstick skillet here. I have 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm just going to melt this down and add our onion, and we want to saute the onion until it's soft. And next we'll add in our apples. I didn't even rinse these, I just drained off the lemon water and added these to the pan. So we'll cook the apples just until they start to soften. You don't want these to become mushy. And then our rice is done, so we'll go ahead and add this to the pan. And then we have some seasonings, a half a teaspoon of dried thyme, a half a teaspoon of dried rosemary, and then we're just gonna season it to taste with salt and pepper once we're finished. And then we'll basically just add the rest of the ingredients. We've got a half a cup of dried cranberries, a half a cup of chopped dried apricots, and then I added almost all of the half a cup of chopped toasted hazelnuts. Give this a stir, and as you can see, I'm tasting it here to make sure it doesn't need any salt and pepper. And usually if the rice has been cooked in chicken broth, you don't need the additional salt. This confetti wild rice pilaf is like Thanksgiving in a bowl. It is so fragrant. It's got lots of texture. I love that it's different, and it really doesn't make a ton, so it's just a nice addition to the Thanksgiving table. I literally feel like a chipmunk. I can't even begin to tell you how much this tastes like Thanksgiving Day. It's sweet and savory. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to serve this. If you love rice and you just want to try something different this year, I really encourage you to try this confetti wild rice pilaf. It's fantastic. All right, so this is a super fast side dish, sauteed green beans with bacon. So pretty much anything with bacon is definitely welcome at my holiday table. So I've got 5 slices of bacon here. I've just chopped them up into tiny pieces and I put them in this hot skillet here. We're going to cook them just about halfway through. I don't want to completely crisp this because we're going to be adding this small red onion. You want about a 1/4 cup of chopped red onion, but you can also use white onion or even a sweet onion. I just really like the flavor of the red onion for this dish. And as you can see, our bacon is almost crispy, but not quite, so I'm going to add in the red onion, and we're just going to stir this and cook it basically until your bacon is nice and crispy, and that will be plenty of time for your onions to get nice and caramelized. And once that happens, we can transfer the onions and bacon to a plate lined with a paper towel, and we'll just set that aside and move forward with the rest of the ingredients. So I've got a tablespoon of butter here. I also left a little bit of bacon fat in the skillet, but not much. I've got some fresh green beans that I trimmed the ends off, and I'll add all of the green beans to this skillet here. And at this point, I'm just going to season the beans with a little bit of salt and pepper. We can always add more seasonings when it's cooked. And then I like to use tongs to toss the beans around with the butter and make sure that the seasonings are incorporated. And then I like to put the lid on because I feel like it cooks the beans faster and they're less likely to get burned on the bottom. And then we'll just give them a toss every 2 or 3 minutes or so, putting the lid back on. Really, this is up to you how long you want to cook the beans. I like mine to have a little bit of crispiness to them, but you can cook them as long or as little as you like. And then at this point, my beans are the way that I like them, so I'm going to add my bacon and onions back to the pan and just toss everything together. At this point, it is ready to serve. That onion flavor with the bacon, having these fresh green beans with bacon, I feel like I'm eating something a little bit lighter because the green bean casserole is really heavy along with everything else, which, whatever, it's Thanksgiving. It's supposed to be that way, but it is nice to have a plate of healthy-ish greens completely smothered in bacon grease, butter, and bacon. You know, hey, there's still some nutrition to be found. It feels lighter and it tastes delicious. And don't forget, I have recipe links for all of these recipes in the descriptions. So if you missed anything during the video, I have those for you. So check those out. I can't wait for you guys to try these green beans. So this is a brand new recipe on my website, Baked Corn Casserole, and I'm so excited to share it with you before the holidays. This requires really, really simple ingredients and basically a large bowl. So I've got a can of creamy style corn. I'm also going to add a can of drained whole sweet kernel corn. And then I've got fire roasted tomatoes. I drained these as well. And then we've got 1 cup of full fat sour cream. You definitely want to use the rich stuff for this recipe. Plus it's the holidays, so you kind of have to indulge. And then we're also going to add in a 1/2 cup of melted butter. And at this point, I actually forgot to add the cup of sharp cheddar cheese, but that's fine because I just added it later. So for our homemade cornbread mixture, I've got a 1/2 cup of yellow cornmeal, a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Stir this together until it just basically is combined, and then we'll add it to the corn mixture. So you can also use one 8.5 ounce box of Jiffy corn mix, but honestly, I feel like the homemade version is so much better. So here goes that cheese, and then we're just going to stir everything together until it's combined. Okay, now it's time to prepare this for baking. I've got a 2-quart casserole dish here. You can also use a 9 by 13 inch square baking pan. We'll spray it generously with nonstick cooking spray and then add all of our corn mixture. I like to use the back of my spatula to smooth out the top, and then I'm just going to give it a little shake just to release any air bubbles that are in the center. We'll bake this at 350 for 1 hour. Basically, you want to bake it until the top is golden and the inside is set. Guys, the first thing I taste in here is I get that hint of green chili. I love it. I love that flavor. Oh my gosh, it's so buttery and corny. I can't wait for you guys to try this one. It is delicious.
I think I'm nervous on camera,
but it's good, huh?
Yeah, especially the crispy parts.
I know.
It's like a apple crisp on corn.
Ooh.
It's like a corn apple crisp.
Yes. Yes, like a cobbler. That is a good way to describe it, because I was trying to describe like the crusty top, and the cobbler, that sounds much better than crusty.
It's like a cobbler. I like it. Vegetables. Vegetable cobbler.
Okay, so I might have saved the best for last. Mama Kay's Gourmet Potatoes. This recipe is so worthy to be on a holiday table. So we're going to start with some potatoes here in a pan of cold water. I'm going to boil these. Basically, when it starts to boil, then I set the timer for 20 minutes. I want to undercook these by about 5 minutes. And I just want to note that you can find the full recipe on my website. I just halved the recipe for this video today because I'm just cooking for my little small family of 3. So in the same pot that I boiled the potatoes, those are cooling right now, and I added a couple of tablespoons of butter. I'm just going to melt that, and then we'll add in some yellow chopped up onion. I'm going to saute the onion until it's golden brown. I like having the little golden brown bits in there. I feel like it really adds depth of flavor to this potato dish. And then we have some different seasonings here. I've got some garlic powder, ground mustard. We've got also some nutmeg, salt, and pepper. So the ground mustard and the nutmeg, you won't even know that they're in there, but they add such great flavor. So once you've let the seasonings cook about a minute or so, I'm going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to add about a cup of sharp cheddar cheese. On my website, I use white sharp cheddar cheese, but either one will work just fine. And I just stir this until the cheese starts to melt. This won't be completely smooth like Velveeta. There'll still be some clumps in there, but that's totally fine. And then we'll add in a cup or so of full fat sour cream. And I just wanted to mention that the sour cream and cheese were at room temperature for about 30 minutes before I added it to the hot pan. That way nothing funky happens like curdling. So we'll just stir this together until it's nice and creamy, and we'll get our potatoes ready. At this point, the potatoes should be easy to peel. You can either do this with your hands, or you can use a paring knife or even a vegetable peeler. And we'll just remove all of the skins, and then I like to chop the potatoes up into about 1-inch cubes or so. And then, like I mentioned, I did undercook these by 5 minutes because I want to make sure that the potatoes hold together in the casserole. We don't want mashed potatoes. We definitely want there to be some chunky potato bits. So we'll add all of the potatoes to our creamy sauce here, and I just gently fold it, again, trying not to mash the potatoes. You want everything to be well coated in this delicious creamy sauce. So I've got a small casserole dish here. I'm gonna spray generously with nonstick cooking spray, and then we'll just add all of our potatoes into the casserole dish and just smooth out the top a little bit. I still like there to be little bits and mounds of potatoes, and then I add a little more cheese to the top. I'm also gonna sprinkle on some paprika just because I think it looks pretty after it's baked. So this goes into a 350-degree oven. We're gonna bake this for about 30 minutes until it's bubbling on the sides and it's golden brown on top. Okay, while that's baking in the oven, I wanted to share with you real quick where I got this recipe and why it's so special. My best friend's mom, I call her Mama Kay, she has given me so many great recipes along with my own mom, and this recipe was something that she made when we were growing up as kids. I would go over to their house for dinner. She always made fantastic meals, and gourmet potatoes was one of the side dishes that she would make. My best friend created a recipe box for me a few years ago, well, actually a lot of years ago, and the gourmet potato recipe was in there. I just wanted to read to you what she says on here about these gourmet potatoes. I gotta put my glasses on though, and they're super dirty. So she says, okay, I have always said if I was stranded on a desert island, the meal I would want is my dad's barbecue chicken and my mom's gourmet potatoes and orange jello salad. I just think that that's so neat. If you were stranded on an island, and you want gourmet potatoes, clearly it's a darn good recipe. I'm so excited for you guys to try this, and I love stories like this. I love that I get to share recipes from my childhood and pass them on to you so that you get to enjoy them for years to come. Do you see that? It looks so hot. I'm very scared I'm gonna burn my face off. I think because I only have this like once or twice a year, it's like I'm having it for the first time. It's so luscious. I don't even use the word luscious very much, but it's luxurious. It does not get any more gourmet than this when it comes to potatoes. This will be a major crowd pleaser if you serve this like on your holiday table. Literally perfection. What are you doing? Are you waiting for scraps? Hi, sweetie girl. If you're a boxer lover, then you know. You just know. I had so much fun cooking with you today. As always, I hope that you feel inspired to try something new, and we will see you next time.